Recently, I answered a Quora question. Would Mark Twain be considered a liberal or a conservative today? So, my answer was this: everyone is considered everything nowadays due to political splintering. I think Mark Twain would be declared a redneck and a yellow dog because I doubt he'd vote for the modern Republican Party. He'd also be branded a communist, and because he used the N word in some of his classic works, he'd be immediately dismissed as racist by some. So I do want to make some additional comments here. I don't think Mark Twain would be considered a conservative, and there are many reasons for that. But I'd also like to note how such labels are increasingly meaningless, and maybe even try to reconcile the real or imagined principles of both liberals and conservatives as I understand them, um, and show you how that would only be possible by moving past the Republican Party. Like, if we were going to do that, I'll explain a lot of the things that are just so wrong and messed up with the GOP. So, on the face of it, liberal and conservative are ideologies that traditionally can be measured by intellectual agreement or disagreement, and in a world of hyper rationalism and a totalizing view of the world, I would say that supposed conservative libertarianism could probably be defined as an odd mixture of conservatism and liberalism. However, due to the Republican Party, things are more convoluted than that. Basically, all of these labels and conflicting ideologies and conspiracy theories have mutated into a giant mess. Therefore, these labels are harder for serious people to truly pin down and successfully define. What I would argue is that the liberal conservative divide is more ideological than anything else. But there is increasingly the whole cult of personality dynamic. And I would divide liberalism apart from conservatism as being largely moral in nature, at least these days, while conservatism is increasingly amoral and a contradictory, individualized cult political worldview, especially of so-called fiscal conservatism, though big military and police and prison budgets are fine for them. So that's why I say it's individualized and contradictory, because they claim to be deficit and debt hawks, yet they have no problem with spending trillions of dollars on military spending. And they have strong support for government order until it becomes inconvenient, as we've seen in the aftermath of January 6th, all done under the cloak of anti-intellectualism and culture war silliness. So all of that silliness, the culture war stuff, is actually masking the whole fiscal conservatism, the corporate greed, and all that, and it's really resulted in something that's hard to actually define in a meaningful way. So yet again, it's very difficult to truly even define the American conservative, as it's such a hodgepodge of conflicting, often broken elements. And the Trump and QAnon cults, if you add them into the mix, things get even sloppier. However, as an added complicating factor, conservatives still seem hell-bent on marching under one banner. So one might argue they haven't splintered as much as they logically should have. Thus, the conservative, libertarian, and most of the alt-right ideologies are already contained in a natural alliance to some extent, since they share values, or at least stated values, though ironically, because of their fake populism, they need to engage in rhetoric against elite classes, despite how they're still supportive of the ultra-rich and have a corporatist worldview that seeks to use big government to micromanage culture, so patriotic values, however they define them, are brainwashed into the population, including kids. Meanwhile, so many of them will say conservatives aren't racist while continually saying blatantly racist things. I mean, it's just nonstop. It's hard to even know where to begin. I mean, you could start with, an obvious example would be Trump claiming that Barack Obama was not born in the United States, and then all the people claiming he was Muslim and saying, he's also an atheist somehow, and he's a communist, yet he's, a Wall Street uh, favorite and all that kind of stuff. All these contradictory things. Pretty good examples of how the Republican Party really is openly racist. Like, they weren't criticizing Obama based on his policies so much. I mean, sure, you might find examples here and there, but, like Obamacare itself was actually a very Republican type of approach to healthcare. It was even something that Mitt Romney, favored. Anyway, additionally, as you likely know, the average actual modern American conservative tends to outwardly appear a lot more libertarian than the radical right-wingers of the past, even though they often don't believe in liberty at all, and in fact would love for the government to regulate culture, while emerging the corporate and religious overlords who tell us what we can and cannot say, together, under the banner of freedom, I guess. Increasingly, Donald Trump, or potentially someone as bad or worse than him, is going to be sort of presented as a dictatorial leader that we all have to follow. So, I mean, what kind of freedom is that? Well, it's the freedom that fascism would try to impose on the population. So, as you can see, if the conservatives out there now want to be, more sane, they are going to have to go in more of a purely libertarian direction, and not be full libertarian either. Like you have to take a stand against these other aspects of right-wing movements and actually advocate for genuine liberty. But if you're going to do that, why not just say that you're a liberal, basically, at that point. So anyway, those are my thoughts on this topic, and hopefully I made myself clear, and hopefully some people out there understand what I'm saying and enjoy my perspective. Anyway, have a good day.